This is day 257 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. Today's Arukh HaShulchan is being sponsored for the continued well-being of Chana Fego Bas Yenta, and for Refuas HaNefesh and Refuas HaGuf for Yehuda Chaim Ben Tzipora Fega by their son. They should be zeicher to have Refuas HaNefesh, Refuas HaGuf, and Brius L'Arukh Yom V'Shanim. If you would like to sponsor a day or more of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please contact me directly. It'd be very greatly appreciated. Today is we're doing Kuf Ayin Zayin Vav to Kuf Ayin Ches Aleph, and talking about Dvarim Aboyim Tochel Suda. Vav finds bar the Ochel Peiros Impas. Somebody eats fruit with bread, and so Baruch Peiros don't make a bracha on the fruit. Came to Fein La Pas because they are subordinate to the bread. Here's funny the Arukh HaShulchan below pas, and so Suda and so bracha. Sometimes you can eat the middle meal without bread, and they still require bracha. Ketzad, how so? Kagon shekava Suda Gedarko Tommy. You made your normal Suda. The answer Suda below pairs la face of pas, and in the middle of the meal they brought you fruit to accompany the bread. B'cham mat imapas, and you gave them a bit with the bread. B'cham od imapas, you have one. Keep more of the bread. But as I feel below pas, and then if you eat in between those times with the bread, you eat the fruit without bread. Ain't such bracha do not require bracha. Came when shiviyum lafis bohem lafis apas, since they were brought in order to accompany bread, and that was their intention. But daito lechomem onim apasing also is a mighty more than the bread. V'afim achar kach nim lashol face for him, and even if it had later on changed his mind not to use them to accompany the bread. Owed anymore. Nevertheless, came with shasha ochlam blow pass instead of the time he ate them without the bread. Hoisadai to shochem owed impass. You had in mind you're going to eat them with the bread later on. Lay slamba. In fact, you didn't do it afterwards. Doesn't matter. So I call it bila in bila makevesbo. Ach machiocha achreishanim lach. But what do you eat after you change your mind and say, I'm not going to eat with bread anymore? That would require its own. Require its own bracha. The Mishnah Berurah says, the Bir Halacha says that this is lechatchila. In other words, he says that your intent to eat more of them with bread is only necessary lechatchila. Since the Russian Torah, you don't make a bracha on food if you eat them with the bread, even if you just begin. So the Mishnah Berurah is more makel here. Mishnah Berurah also writes that some Rishonim hold that when you're eating in the middle without bread, in other words, you started with bread and ended with bread, and you ate it in the middle of the fruit without the bread, you do have to make a bracha. And therefore, it's proper to be nizar l'chatchila to make a bracha on this fruit before you eat them with the bread and eat them somewhat by themselves. Yeah, but if you didn't make a bracha from the beginning, you can eat the fruit, but you should try to eat it with the bread at the end. So the final analysis, although in Bir Halacha he said it otherwise, and in the Mishnah Berurah he comes out basically the same conclusion as the Arukh HaShulchan, that you have to have really in mind to eat it with bread after bread, without bread. Zayin. So that's it, brother. Middle of the meal, they laugh says the pass in order to accompany the bread. They didn't bring them to accompany the bread, but to eat them for pleasure. As people do eat fruits. And he, when he ate them, happened to eat them with the bread, not as specifically as accompaniment to bread, but for some other reason, such as he likes the taste of eating the fruit with bread, etc. When he has in mind to eat them further with bread for this reason. It's obvious in that case that whatever you're eating with the bread is part of our bracha, because in final analysis eating with the bread. But if in the interim you ate them without bread, you have to make a bracha on them at that time. Even though you eat them beginning and end with the bread, because in the middle it was clearly not as l'lapis as hapas, it was for its own purposes. And even they brought you the food in order to accompany bread. You start eating it without bread, you have to make a bracha. It's typically when you start eating them with bread. Without obapas, have in mind to eat more of them with bread. Then the middle ones are middle fruit is exempt. Not at the beginning, not before you ate it with bread, like we saw in Mishabura. But that in that case, that's he holds the chatchila to do that way, so you can make a bar hates on them. And you show that those who argue, even in this case, and say that the middle fruit is not exempt from bracha. After you even though already paskin that the middle fruit is potter. Nevertheless, cost who kolak doilim, all doilim right. Like the Mishnah Berurah says that the tovlin hok should be in law paras emsasuda. That's proper to conduct yourself when you're bringing food in the middle of the meal. Even though your intent is to accompany the bread with them, nevertheless you'll at mehem below pass. Eat a little bit of them without bread. And make a body praise to them. Okay, Lord says they call this in order to be able to say all the opinions. And anybody who is God fearing will conduct himself accordingly. But according to strict level of the law, with bread, without bread, with bread, you will not make a bracha on the fruit. Okay, your bracket says you can't go to Mogan Avras, you can't give up about Tassos, you can give up Ayin Sham, Shem, not even Kain Ladina, Minech Hashoshas, Ayin Sham. They're even more inclined to strongly suggest they make a bar praise first on the fruit. Ches, Komash is Bar B'Shloka Vasudas, up here, Slachat Chila. This is talking about where you didn't ask for a fruit platter at a chasna, right? They weren't covered suda on fruits deliberately. But in the middle of the meal, they have a little pear slavis, but it's a pass. As a pass, but in the middle, they brought you fruit to accompany your bread. If in the beginning with you designate your meal only on fruit, such poor people in lands where fruit is cheap. In this case, the fruit is literally something which comes on account of the meal. Below pass, you eat from them initially without bread, answer bracha. In other words, after you made a motzi, of course. And then even if you eat initially from them without bread, it doesn't require a bracha. Just like you eat meat in the middle of the meal without bread, doesn't require a bracha. And it's bracha not before and not after. But those arguments, even in this case, in pass. No, the first time you take part of the fruit, you should eat it with bread. And then you can eat them without bread. So you have to begin eating them with the bread. But the reason is, since people don't normally accompany bread with fruit, just his personal choice at the moment. Therefore, in order to manifest that he has made this unique choice, he should eat some of them beginning with bread. Unlike other cooked dishes which are clearly subordinate to bread. Therefore, it's best to eat from them initially with some bread. And then even if you later on eat without bread, they're exempt from a separate bracha. Even though you don't eat any more bread with them, because the ikar kriya suda was upon the fruit. Therefore, you don't have to eat any more bread after that initial consumption. Those who write the bracha. Some people write that dates are always part of bracha. Nation must be in kapas because they satisfy in a way similar to bread. So it's not clear how that's true. Is a pay real eight. It's best to eat some other fruit and make ha'etz on it, and then make then your and tomorrow on the day of This is one of the rare instances. It's another good riddle question where you could ask, where is the case where you have a shiva saminim dates in front of you, and yet you make a bracha on an apple. The bracha on an apple, and this would be a case where it's in the middle of the meal. Bialacha writes that he writes it's not enough to eat a little bit of the fruit together with the bread, because that would not be called kriya suda. And if you eat a little bit with the bread at first, then you also have to eat more with the bread. So he's pretty machmir on that. And the Bialacha writes that the dates do require a bracha, so that he's somewhat more lenient. so to speak. Test. Every place where we say that fruit is exempted by the bracha on bread, even they weren't on the table, they're exempted. Once you had a mind to bring them on. The Mishnah Berurah says, even if you didn't have your das upon them explicitly, since you are designating yourself to eat, so you have in mind everything they're going to bring you. I guess they're going to bring you, when they bring you, if they bring you peros, lafis and sapas, then that's included. You don't make a separate bracha. Back to Rosh. Any place where they're not exempted by the bracha on the bread, I feel Arukh HaShulchan, even they're lying on the table. You know, Motzi doesn't cover them. Because I've been in base says if I have to make the bracha on the bread, they sent him from another house. So upon whom he is not relying to feed him. It's like a gift. He didn't have a mind to get such a gift. I feel even something which normally does accompany bread, so the bracha and contain nimlach. You have to make a bracha on them like somebody who changes their mind. Ad kan l'shono. Upashadu says Roshon, that's obvious. The Roman writes, I haven't seen people be careful about this. And he says perhaps it's because the stam das adam is on anything they bring you in the middle of a meal. Ve'etzatam must become. Arukh HaShulchan says this is obviously not a sufficient reason. Unless it's a place where neighbors frequently send gifts of food to each other, or relatives, but if that's not the case, occurred by chance that somebody sent his friend food in the middle of the meal, is a tafshil, whatever it is, so the baruch so you have to make its own brach on it. Unless, of course, you eat it directly with bread. Does not say tafel pas, then it becomes subordinate to bread, and so the baruch. Upshita, and it's clear, im shochel peros, they sent you fruit. The tzorach lebarak b'chol. You have to make a brach no matter what. I feel even they're accustomed to send it to you because peros are not part of the meal in any way, shape, or form. Unless you eat everything which is sent to you im hapat with bread. Yud b'dah. You should know the fik kol dim she's bar b'siman zeh. According to all these halachas, etzleinu kol ma'acholim shel kemach ha'metubukanim b'chem or b'shuman. All mizonas dishes which are fried in oil, butter or oil, como kreplach, blintzes, teigchatz, pumpuskis, chitzbem. I feel more like pears, even if they're full of fruit, like a fruit blintz. Nevertheless, hakol nechsha machmasuda. It's called because of the meal. The kemach ikar, because the flour is primary. Pears tough on the fruit is subordinate. Even though rich people eat them as hors d'oeuvres or some sort of pleasure side dish. Nevertheless, they got flour. They satisfy the body. Then require their own bracha. Also, when you cook potatoes with meat, or shuman, or with fat, and you put fruit in that, shizifin, shikorim plums, the korin lezet tzimis, and this is, I know it's interesting, it calls this tapuchei adama. Normally artemis is made with carrots, but you put the prunes in the carrots, shnei pirov, b'leil Shabbos, normally people do this Friday night, ha-plumin, the plums, who tava tafel are subordinate. They say bracha, they don't require bracha. I feel ocham meh ma'at, well tapuchei adama, even some of them without the potatoes. Elin kain ein rotz l'chol klat tapuchei adama, unless you don't have money at all to eat the potatoes. Raka plumin, levadam. So the baruch lehem bari praise, and make a bracha bari praise on them. Which is the next sip. Apple simis. When they cook fruit by itself, such as an apple simis, uplomen and plums, verozhenkas and raisins, the saftalin, I don't know what that is. See some other type of fruit. Looks like maybe I don't know. No seeds there, because you may give it at the end. It's a kampa. You give it at the end of the meal. That's, you have to make a bracha. The zemikrish lo machmas suda, that's not called on account of the meal. Shem boim rak l'tanu. They only come for pleasure. They don't satisfy the body. The Daish know the Shiragilim Lamar. People are accustomed to say the Shembashim appears in Basar and Shuman. When you cook the meat when you cook the fruit with meat or with fat, the meat is very boy machmas suda. That this is called things which come in account of the meal. Upturim be bracha, they're exempt for a bracha. Ain't shum time nocham is that. It's not true. In lok shochem in pas, unless you have bread, we talk about soskain, and that's the best thing to do. V'chomine metika kelekach tort tzol berech ak sheyesh beim shuman. Any type of sweet rolls, such as the lekach and tort, you have to make a bracha, even if they have fat in them. Ava pladin and tzol berech dezel machmas suda kedua she's a mamish u'masbia esaguf. Whatever pladin is, then that is considered to be machmas suda, and it and satisfies the body. Mishabur writes, if you cook fruit with meat, that's a machlokas achronim, if they come subordinate to the meat. And the Yagatana suggests that you should not make a bracha on the fruits, even if we say they're not tafel to the meat, since they're cooked for the purpose of the meal. Nevertheless, in order to be yotze esophic, you should first take some raw fruit, and you should make a bracha on it to be motzi this fruit. And if he doesn't have a raw fruit, he should eat beginning and end with bread. And so too in countries where there are many fruits and they're constantly cooking fruit for use included in the meal, always he says with bread. Yud Beis, really the avocado vaday hocha peres kohen masuda she'elam shachas l'suda. It seems to be clear that somebody, even though somebody who's definitely eating fruit, definitely in case the person eats fruit before the meal, which have no shachas, no connection to the meal, el short just wants to eat them, then he sits on the meal. It's all baruch bracha achron al peos. It's got to make a bracha achron on those fruit which are totally disconnected from the meal. Nevertheless, nevertheless, if he wants to eat more of that fruit, el short but he wants to eat them during the meal. And so baruch bracha achron. Don't make a bracha achron, but gamlo bracha rishona, and also not bracha rishona k'shechem tosu when you did within the meal, because you made the bracha afterwards. Agree achron bracha kodemis. They follow the previous bracha. And once you reach that stage, they also require bracha achrona, because the shari iftar bracha achrona day birkas hamazon. Then birkas hamazon works for them as well. Kmo shen he's bar b'soch hasuda b'siv gimel, as explained. Mishnah Bura says that you have to have kavanah when you make the bracha rishona on the fruit before the meal to include specifically include fruit inside the meal. Kufay ches. So what things are called an interruption of the meal? If somebody's eating in one house, and interrupted his meal, and went to another house, or he says here in the brackets, another room. Or he was eating and his friends called him to speak with him. He also passed the and went to the opening of his house, outside the opening. That's because the Mishnah says if you speak in the opening, it's not considered to be a shini makom, and I assume Arukh HaShulchan would agree with that. And then Chazar, he becomes back over shini makom since he changed his place. You got to make now a bracha achrona on everything, right? Or birkas hamazon on everything, right? And then you make a motzi again, and then complete your meal. This is called for the Rambam. Pshita shetzarech. I said before, this is all. I'm sorry. This is Rambam. Pshita shetzarech litol yodav, and it's clear that you have to watch again, and if you make a motz again, to watch again. But his bar zebsim kufayin ayin sham. Nearly dito bro bracha, but he says to wash without a bracha. Bir Allah says that if you're absent a long time in Mesiach Das, you got distracted, then you do make a bracha. If you're not Mesiach yodav, he's not even sure if you have to do netila. But the Arukh HaShulchan says netila no matter what, bracha no, and that can be consistent. And he says nearly back to Arukh HaShulchan nearly shito below bracha shawash out bracha came show because his hands are clean. Now if he did a Rambam mishiyotza bem tzasula, according to the Rambam, as somebody went out in the middle of the meal, to take a walk in the yard, have a gemara suda that ended his suda. So the levar birkas hamazon called him. We have to make a benching on the previous haramotzi and motzi over again. Krasiga Raiva Bezer. Raiva doesn't like this. Bezer shono. He fleet was there. This is too exaggerated. Call a Pesach base of just going outside, opening your house. Lava kira. It's not uprooting the meal. Certainly, if you can see the place where you're sitting, it's not uprooting at all. There's longish brackets here. Shitas places are Rosh Rashbam. She's Bayer, which we haven't seen yet. According to the Rosh Lesa Dean Zeklau, this halacha is not applicable. The Korban Tosefta she received base. We're going to see a source of the Tosefta tomorrow. Also Tosefta Nishnes Biyachim Rabaisim Nechabur Shepsachim Kufal on the base, and that Tosefta is juxtaposed to the Brisa and Psachim. Shitas are saying El Niches Brisa halacha. According to these rabbis, that brisa is not la'alacha. But Rif Rama halacha. Only according to Rif Rama it's halacha. And Pasuk Rav Shesha Sham. I was saying the Elam, but the rabbis in Sif base. Pasuk Rav Chista Sham. V'duk. I'm not sure why he wrote that down here before we even saw Sif base. Yeah, I just looked up that the two words we didn't know what they meant. A subtotally in that fruit. Nobody knows what it is. So discuss of it on the forum on otsu.org. Somebody says peaches, but says that's other people cast aspersions on that interpretation. And the pladin at the end, I saw interpreted as a strudel. So perhaps that is indeed interpretation. Because that would make sense, because the strudel comes evidently machmas hasuda. Again, I'm not sure about that, but perhaps that is the translation.